The maintenance corridors beneath Nova City always smelled of ozone and rust. Ren Tavish adjusted his headlamp, squinting at the junction box that had sparked complaints from 3 different levels. Another night shift, another problem nobody else wanted to fix. The pay barely covered his rent, but jobs weren't exactly plentiful for people with his background. Piece of junk, he muttered, carefully separating wires corroded by the constant moisture that seeped through the city's foundations. The tools in his belt clinked against the metal grating as he shifted his weight. That's when he heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. Not mechanical. Not the usual drip of condensation or the hum of power conduits. Something else. Something alive. Ren froze, listening. The sound came again, a ragged breath from somewhere down the darkened corridor. His first instinct was to call security, but his hand paused over the comm unit. Security meant questions, and questions meant attention he couldn't afford. "Hello?" he called, swinging his headlamp toward the sound. The beam caught nothing but shadows and steam. Carefully securing his tools, Ren moved deeper into the maintenance tunnel. The breathing grew more distinct, labored. At the intersection of 2 service corridors, his light finally found her. She was curled against the wall, arms wrapped tightly around herself. At first glance, she looked human, humanoid at least, but as his light swept over her, he saw the difference. Her skin had a faint luminescence, like polished jade catching the light. And her hair, matted with what looked like dried blood, fell in waves of deep crimson that seemed to pulse with an inner glow. "Hey," Ren said softly, crouching several feet away. "You hurt?" Her head snapped up, and Ren nearly lost his balance. Her eyes were unlike anything he'd ever seen, black as space itself, but with tiny points of light like distant stars. She pressed herself harder against the wall, her expression a mixture of pain and fear. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, raising his empty hands. "I work here." Maintenance. She studied him, those starfield eyes taking in every detail of his worn coveralls, the company patch on his sleeve, the tools at his belt. "Do you understand me?" Ren asked. After a moment, she gave a single, curt nod. "You're injured." It wasn't a question. Even in the dim light, he could see dark stains on her tattered clothing, a strange silvery substance that must have been her blood. She didn't respond, but her gaze flicked toward the corridor behind him, then back. "Are you running from someone?" Ren asked, keeping his voice low. Another nod, more hesitant this time. Ren sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. This was trouble. The kind of trouble he'd spent 3 years carefully avoiding. Non-humans weren't exactly rare in Nova City, but ones hiding in maintenance tunnels with what looked like combat injuries, that was the kind of situation that ended badly for everyone involved. But leaving her here wasn't an option either. Not when she was clearly wounded, possibly dying. "Can you walk?" he asked. She attempted to stand, bracing herself against the wall. Her legs trembled with the effort, and she slid back down with a hiss of pain. Ren made his decision. "I'm going to help you up. Okay?" She hesitated, then extended a shaking hand. Her fingers were longer than a human's, with an extra joint, and tipped with what looked like retractable claws. As Ren carefully took her hand, he felt a strange warmth, almost like a mild electric current running from her skin to his. "My apartment isn't far," he said, helping her to her feet. "We can get you patched up there." She leaned heavily against him, her body radiating heat like a small furnace. "Why?" she asked, her voice melodic but rough with pain. "Why help?" Ren adjusted his grip, supporting her weight as they moved slowly down the corridor. "Let's just say I know what it's like to need help and not get it." They made their way through the maze of maintenance tunnels, avoiding the security cameras Ren had learned to map during his late-night shifts. Every few minutes, she would tense, listening for something Ren couldn't hear. By the time they reached the service exit near his apartment block, the first rays of dawn were breaking through the perpetual haze that hung over Nova City. The woman, if that's what she was, seemed to grow weaker in the growing light, her skin's glow dimming. Almost there, Ren assured her, guiding her through the back entrance he'd rigged to bypass the building's security system months ago. When they finally reached his small apartment, he helped her to the couch. In the better light, he could see the full extent of her injuries, a deep gash across her side, smaller cuts on her arms and face. "My name is Ren," he said, retrieving his first aid kit. "What's yours?" She watched him with those unsettling eyes, seeming to weigh her options. "Vela," she finally said. "My name is Vela." As Ren set to work cleaning her wounds, he wondered what exactly he had just invited into his life. But looking at her, this strange, wounded creature who had trusted him enough to share her name, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. Outside, the city awoke to a new day, unaware that in a small, forgotten apartment, something extraordinary had begun. Vela slept for 16 hours straight. Ren checked on her periodically, watching the slow rise and fall of her chest, the way her skin's luminescence ebbed and flowed like tides. The silvery blood had dried on his makeshift bandages, hardening into something that resembled thin metal foil. When she finally stirred, Ren was reheating leftover noodles in his cramped kitchen. Her eyes opened instantly, fully alert, no drowsy transition between sleep and wakefulness. "How long?" she asked, voice clearer than it had been in the tunnels. "Almost a day," Ren replied, bringing over a glass of water. "You might want to drink this." Vela examined the glass with suspicion before taking a careful sip. "Your world has too much hydrogen." "Sorry about that," Ren said, unsure how to respond. "It's kind of a main ingredient around here." She almost smiled, a slight tug at the corner of her mouth. "Your humor is unexpected. So is finding a glowing woman bleeding in maintenance tunnels." He gestured to her side. "How's the wound?" Vela pulled back the bandage, revealing what should have been a serious injury. Instead, the gash had already sealed itself, leaving a faint line that pulsed with golden light beneath her jade skin. "We heal quickly," she said, noticing his surprise. "Though not as quickly as I would like." Ren sat across from her, the small apartment making any distance between them feel insignificant. "So, want to tell me what you were running from?" Vela's star-filled eyes studied him with unsettling intensity. "Why did you help me, Ren? I asked first. And I need to understand your motives before I answer." Ren sighed, running a hand through his unkempt hair. "Look, I don't know what it's like where you come from, but down in those tunnels, people don't get much help. 3 years ago, that was me, broken, bleeding, nowhere to go. No one stopped for me." He shrugged, uncomfortable with the memory. "Maybe I'm trying to balance some cosmic ledger. Maybe I'm just an idiot. Take your pick." Vela was silent for a long moment. "My people are called Luminari," she finally said. "We come from a system your people haven't reached yet. We're valuable." "Valuable how?" She held up her hand, and the glow beneath her skin intensified. Small tendrils of light gathered at her fingertips, coalescing into a floating orb of pure energy that illuminated the dim apartment. Ren stared, transfixed. "That's energy in its purest form," Vela said, closing her hand. The orb dissipated. "We generate it naturally. Some use it for power. Others for weapons." Her expression darkened. "Most use it to extend their lives. People are hunting you for your energy?" "A specific group. They call themselves the Harvesters." Vela's voice grew cold. "They don't kill us quickly." The implications hung heavy in the air. Ren felt sick thinking about what she might have endured. "How did you end up here?" he asked. "I was taken from my homeworld 2 years ago." I escaped their ship during a refueling stop at your orbital station. She gestured to her injuries. They don't surrender their property easily. You're not property, Ren said firmly. Vela looked at him with surprise, as if the concept was novel. That distinction matters to you. It should matter to everyone. A soft beeping interrupted them. Ren crossed to the small view screen near his door, flicking it on. The lobby camera showed 3 figures entering, tall, wearing long coats despite the warm weather, moving with military precision. Are your doors secure? Vela asked, suddenly beside him. Basic locks, nothing special. How did you? They found me, she said, her body tensing. We need to leave. Now. How could they track you here? Vela touched her temple. Trace elements in my blood give off a signature they can follow. The effect lessens as I heal, but... A sharp bang echoed from somewhere below them, the stairwell door being forced open. Back exit? She asked. Fire escape, through the bedroom window. Ren grabbed a backpack, stuffing it with essentials, medikit, water, the little cash he had. How many are there? At least 3 within range of my senses. Vela moved to the window, peering out. More will come if they signal. Ren hesitated, then pulled a small case from under his bed. Inside lay a compact pulse pistol, illegal for civilians, especially ones with his record. He'd sworn never to touch one again. You know how to use that? Vela asked, no judgment in her voice. Unfortunately, yes. He tucked it into his jacket. Let's go. They were halfway down the fire escape when the door to his apartment burst open. Shouts erupted above them as they hit the alley running. Vela moved with surprising grace despite her injuries, keeping pace beside him. This way, Ren said, guiding her through a narrow gap between buildings. I know this area. They emerged onto a crowded street, blending into the flow of people. Vela pulled the hood of his borrowed jacket over her luminous hair. We need to get underground, Ren whispered. I know someone who might help. Someone you trust? Ren gave a humorless laugh. I wouldn't go that far. But she owes me, and she hates authority more than I do. As they navigated through the bustling lower markets of Nova City, Ren felt Vela's hand slip into his. That strange warmth flowed between them again, but this time it felt different, less accidental, more deliberate. They're still following, she murmured. I can sense them. Just a little further. Ren squeezed her hand. Stay close. Above them, the massive towers of Nova City stretched toward the perpetually clouded sky, while around them, the chaotic energy of the city's underbelly pulsed with its own rhythm. For the first time in years, Ren felt truly alive, scared, yes, but with a purpose that had long been missing. And beside him walked a woman made of light and secrets, whose very existence had just turned his carefully constructed solitude upside down. The old maintenance hub had been abandoned after the eastern sector retrofitting 3 years ago. Now it served as a meeting point for those who preferred to do business away from Nova City's omnipresent surveillance. Wait here, Ren told Vela, positioning her behind a cluster of decommissioned power cells. Dahlia can be unpredictable. Your friend doesn't sound very reliable, Vela observed. She's not my friend. And reliable isn't the word I'd use. But she has connections we need. Ren moved through the darkness to the inner chamber, where a single illuminated workbench cast long shadows. A woman sat hunched over it, her face partially obscured by magnifying goggles as she soldered something delicate. Dahlia, Ren called softly. The soldering iron didn't waver. You've got nerve showing up here, Tavish. I need help. You always need help. Dahlia pushed up her goggles, revealing a web of circuitry implants around her left eye. Last time you needed help, I almost got blacklisted from every part supplier in the sector. This is different. It always is. She sighed, setting down her tools. What kind of trouble? The kind that follows you. Ren hesitated. Off-world trouble. Dahlia's augmented I word, focusing. You stupid, desperate man. What have you done? Before Ren could answer, a crash echoed from the outer chamber. He spun, drawing his pulse pistol. Vela, he shouted, rushing back toward where he'd left her. The scene that greeted him froze him in place. Two figures in sleek armor had Vela cornered, but she wasn't cowering. Her skin blazed with light, illuminating the entire chamber. Her hands were extended, crackling with energy that danced between her fingers like lightning. One of the hunters raised what looked like a specialized net launcher. Ren didn't think, he fired, the pulse blast striking the hunter's shoulder and spinning him around. The distraction was enough. Vela thrust both hands forward, and a wave of pure energy erupted from her palms. It struck the second hunter squarely in the chest, lifting him off his feet and slamming him against the far wall. More coming, she gasped, the light beneath her skin dimming slightly with the exertion. Dahlia appeared beside Ren, a heavy-duty stunner in her hands. Well, this explains a lot, she said dryly. Back exit, now. They fled through a service corridor, emerging into a labyrinth of abandoned industrial tunnels. Dahlia led them confidently through the darkness, occasionally consulting a holographic map projected from her wrist device. What are they? She asked, nodding toward Vela. Harvesters, Vela replied. They collect energy sources. And you're what, a battery? Dahlia, Ren warned. Hey, I'm helping, aren't I? She stopped at a reinforced door, punching in a complex code. But I like to know what kind of hell I'm inviting into my life. The door slid open, revealing a surprisingly comfortable living space carved out of the abandoned infrastructure, Ghost Hab, as they were called in Nova City's underworld. You'll be safe here temporarily, Dahlia said. Security grid runs on a closed circuit. Nothing in or out without my codes. Vela sank onto a utilitarian couch, the glow beneath her skin noticeably dimmer than before. Ren sat beside her, concern evident in his expression. That energy blast, it weakened you. She nodded. I need to regenerate. Food helps, rest is better. I've got nutrient packs, Dahlia offered, surprisingly helpful now. She tossed several to Ren. High calorie, designed for augment users after heavy system drain. As Vela ate, Dahlia pulled Ren aside. Those weren't standard mercenaries, Tavish. That was guild tech. What the hell did you stumble into? She was hurt. I helped her. Your savior complex will get you killed one day. Dahlia glanced over at Vela. Though I admit, she's impressive. Can you get us transport? Off-city, maybe even off-planet? Dahlia laughed. You don't think small, do you? It'll cost you. I'll work it off. You know I'm good for it. It's not about the credits. Dahlia's expression grew serious. The guild doesn't forget, and they don't forgive. You help her, you're on their list forever. Ren looked back at Vela, who was watching them with those unsettling Starfield eyes. In the short time he'd known her, his ordinary life had been shattered. He should be terrified, resentful even. Instead, he felt more purposeful than he had in years. I'm already on their list, he said quietly. Dahlia shook her head. Stay here tonight. I'll see what I can arrange. But Tavish, she gripped his arm, be sure about this. Really sure. After she left, Ren returned to Vela's side. The color was returning to her skin, the jade luminescence brightening. Your friend is right, Vela said softly. The harvesters won't stop. Even if I escape this planet, they'll keep hunting. Anyone with me becomes a target. Then we'll need to be better at hiding, Ren replied simply. Vela studied him with puzzled fascination. You barely know me. Why risk everything? Instead of answering, Ren reached out, hesitantly, and touched her cheek. That now familiar warmth flowed between them, but this time he didn't pull away. Beneath his fingertips, the glow in her skin pulsed stronger, like it was responding to his touch. Maybe I'm tired of just surviving, he said. Maybe helping you feels like something worth doing. Vela leaned into his touch, her eyes closing briefly. When she opened them again, tiny galaxies swirled in their depths. On my world, she whispered, we believe energy never truly disappears. It transforms, flows from one form to another. Her hand rose to cover his. Your energy calls to mine, Ren Tavish. I don't understand why, but it does. In the dim safe house, surrounded by danger on all sides, something ignited between them, fragile and unexpected, yet as tangible as the light beneath her skin. 3 days in Dahlia's safe house felt like 3 weeks. The space, while secure, wasn't designed for extended stays, especially not with 2 people constantly aware of each other's presence. Ren found himself watching Vela when she thought he wasn't looking. The way she examined human objects with curious precision. How she stood motionless for hours, her eyes closed, absorbing the ambient energy in the room to heal faster. The subtle changes in her skin's luminescence that seemed to match her emotions, brighter when she was alert or curious, softer when she was relaxed. Your staring has patterns, she remarked on the 3rd night, not looking up from the datapad Dahlia had left them. Every 4.2 minutes, approximately. Ren felt heat rise to his face. Sorry. You're just different from anyone I've ever met. As are you. Now she did look up, those star-filled eyes finding his. Humans I've encountered before were less complicated. Complicated how? Most see what they want to see. Value based on utility. She set the datapad aside. You see me. The simple statement hung between them, weighted with meaning Ren wasn't sure he fully understood. A soft chime interrupted the moment, the security system announcing Dahlia's return. She entered looking more disheveled than usual, her augmented eye glowing fiercely. Good news and bad news, she announced without preamble. Transports arranged. Small cargo hauler, minimal crew, captain owes me favors. They'll take you beyond guild jurisdiction. And the bad news? Ren asked. They need you at the port in 6 hours. And, her expression hardened, the harvesters have set up checkpoints throughout the lower sectors. They're scanning for her energy signature. Vela tensed. Their sensors are calibrated to my specific frequency. I can't mask it completely. What about dampening it? Dahlia asked, tossing a small package onto the table. Experimental tech. Military-grade suppression field. Designed for covert ops to hide augment signatures. Ren opened the package, revealing what looked like a sleek metallic band. Will this work? Maybe. Temporarily. Dahlia shrugged. But getting to the port is still a problem. Too many checkpoints, too many scanners. Vela picked up the band, examining it carefully. This disrupts energy patterns by creating inverse wavelengths? Dahlia raised an eyebrow, impressed. Essentially. It won't last forever, and the closer you get to their specialized sensors, the less effective it becomes. There must be another way to the port, Ren said, thinking aloud. Maintenance tunnels only go so far. There's one option, Dahlia said reluctantly. The old pneumatic waste system. They converted it during the retrofitting, but the original tunnels still exist. They connect directly to the port sublevel. You're suggesting we travel through literal garbage chutes? Former garbage chutes. And yes. Vela stood, decision made. How do we access them? The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Dahlia provided them with basic supplies, emergency rations, and a more detailed weapons check for Ren's pulse pistol. She also gave Vela fresh clothing, less conspicuous than Ren's oversized garments, designed to conceal her unique appearance. When they were alone again, preparing for departure, Ren noticed Vela standing by the small window, peering through the narrow gap in the security shutters at the distant lights of Nova City. Having second thoughts, he asked, joining her. No. She turned to him. But you should. Why's that? Because you still have a life here. You're risking everything for someone you barely know. Ren laughed softly. What life? Fixing junctions in maintenance tunnels? Hiding from my past in a city that barely knows I exist? And following me is better? It's something. He met her gaze steadily. Something that matters. Vela stepped closer, the distance between them suddenly charged with tension. The energy transfer works both ways, she said quietly. When I touch you, I feel your life force. Strong. Resilient. But there's pain there too. Ren swallowed hard. We all have our scars. Yes, she agreed, reaching up to trace a finger along his jawline. Where she touched, warmth bloomed, not just physical heat but something deeper, as if she was connecting with something fundamental within him. What are you doing? He whispered. Learning you, Vela replied, her voice equally soft. My people can share energy, memories, feelings. I've never attempted it with a human. The room seemed to fade around them as her touch intensified. Ren felt a strange sensation, like barriers within him were dissolving, walls he'd built years ago crumbling under her gentle exploration. Without thinking, he caught her hand, pressing it more firmly against his cheek. The connection deepened instantly. Images flashed through his mind, not his memories but hers. A world bathed in perpetual twilight. Beings of light moving through crystalline structures. The terror of confinement, of being drained, weakened, used. Vela gasped, pulling back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to share so much. Ren caught his breath, still reeling from the intensity of the connection. Don't apologize. I wanted to understand. She studied him, wonder in her expression. Most non-luminary minds cannot process our memories. But yours. She hesitated. You saw my homeworld? He nodded. It was beautiful. And terrible. What they did to you. And I felt yours, she said softly. The loneliness. The guilt you carry. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining. You've been running too, Ren. Just in a different way. Before he could respond, Dahlia's security system chimed an alert. The sound broke the moment, pulling them back to the reality of their situation. It's time, Ren said, reluctantly stepping away. As they gathered their meager supplies and prepared to enter the abandoned tunnel system that would lead them to the port, Ren felt something had fundamentally shifted between them. Whatever connection they'd formed, whether alien energy transfer or something more human, had changed them both. And as they disappeared into the darkness beneath Nova City, guided only by Dahlia's maps and the soft glow of Vela's skin, Ren realized he wasn't just helping her escape anymore. He was finding his own freedom in the process. The abandoned waste system tunnels stretched like a decaying circulatory system beneath Nova City. Ren led the way, guided by Dahlia's holomap, while Vela followed close behind. The suppression band around her wrist had dimmed her natural glow to a faint shimmer, enough to see by, but hopefully weak enough to evade detection. 2 more junctions, Ren said, checking the map. Then we should be directly beneath the port's cargo processing area. Vela nodded, but her attention was elsewhere, head tilted as if listening for something beyond human perception. What is it? Ren asked, instantly alert. Energy signatures, she whispered. Multiple sources. Moving parallel to us. Harvesters? Different. More mechanical. She touched the tunnel wall. They're using the maintenance systems to track us. Ren cursed under his breath. Drones. They must have detected something. He quickened their pace. We need to move faster. They pushed forward through the narrow passages, the distant whir of pursuit growing louder behind them. When they reached the final junction, Ren's heart sank. The access hatch to the port sublevel was sealed, not just locked, but welded shut. No, he muttered, running his hands along the seam. This isn't on the map. It must have been sealed during the last security upgrade. Vela joined him, examining the hatch. Stand back. The suppression band. Remove it, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Ren hesitated, then unclasped the band from her wrist. Immediately, her skin blazed with renewed brilliance, the jade luminescence pulsing with power that had been held in check for hours. Vela placed both hands against the sealed hatch. Her eyes closed in concentration as energy flowed from her core to her palms. The metal beneath her touch began to glow, first red, then orange, then white-hot. They'll detect this, Ren warned, glancing nervously down the tunnel where the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Then be ready, she replied through gritted teeth. The metal softened under her touch, the welded seams liquefying. With a final surge of energy, Vela pushed, and the hatch gave way, falling outward with a heavy clang. She stumbled, suddenly weak. Ren caught her before she could fall, supporting her weight. You okay? She nodded, though her skin's glow had dimmed significantly. Proceed. They climbed through the opening into what appeared to be a storage area, crates stacked high, automated loading equipment sitting idle during the night cycle. Above them, through a small window, they could see the massive silhouettes of cargo ships against Nova City's perpetually clouded sky. Docking Bay 12, Ren said, checking Dahlia's instructions. That's our ride. They navigated carefully through the storage area, avoiding the occasional patrol droid. Vela moved sluggishly, the energy expenditure from melting the hatch clearly taking its toll. We're almost there, Ren encouraged, helping her along. Just a little further. They were within sight of the docking bay entrance when the alarms began to blare. Red warning lights flooded the corridor, and heavy security doors began to descend throughout the facility. Run! Ren shouted, pulling Vela forward. They sprinted toward the closing doors, sliding beneath one just before it sealed. On the other side lay Docking Bay 12, where a small, battered cargo hauler sat waiting, its engines already cycling for departure. The ship's ramp was down, a single figure standing at its base, a grizzled woman with captain's insignia who looked distinctly unhappy about the alarms. Dahlia's friends, I presume, she called over the noise. You're making my departure very complicated. Sorry about that, Ren replied, helping Vela toward the ramp. We had some unexpected delays. Before they could reach the ship, a section of wall to their right exploded inward. Through the debris stepped three figures in the now familiar armor of the harvesters, weapons raised. The Luminari is guild property, the lead figure announced, voice distorted through a tactical helmet. Surrender her and you may live. The ship captain drew her sidearm. I'm not losing my clearance window because of your jurisdictional dispute. Get on board or get left behind. Ren pushed Vela toward the ramp. Go. I'll hold them off. But Vela stood her ground, stepping in front of him instead. No more running, she said quietly. Before Ren could protest, she raised her hands. The suppression band lay discarded in the tunnels below, and nothing now restrained the full force of her power. Her entire body blazed with light, so bright that Ren had to shield his eyes. The harvesters fired, energy weapons discharging with deadly precision. But the bolts never reached their target. They froze in mid-air, suspended in a field of energy that Vela had somehow created around them. "You have taken enough from my people," she said, her voice resonating with power. "No more." With a gesture, she redirected the suspended energy bolts back toward the harvesters. Two found their marks, sending armored figures crashing backward. The leader dodged, rolling to the side and coming up with a different weapon, a specialized containment device. Ren recognized the threat before Vela did. Without hesitation, he stepped between her and the harvester, raising his pulse pistol. Both fired simultaneously. The harvester's containment field struck Ren instead of Vela, enveloping him in crackling energy that dropped him to his knees. But his shot found its mark as well, catching the harvester squarely in the chest and sending him sprawling. "Ren!" Vela cried, dropping to his side. The containment field designed for luminary physiology had a different effect on human biology. Ren convulsed as energy coursed through him, his eyes wide with pain. Vela placed her hands on his chest, her expression desperate. "Your energy pattern is destabilizing. I can feel it." Behind them, the ship captain called urgently, "We need to go now. Port security is 30 seconds out." Vela ignored her, focusing entirely on Ren. "I can help you, but it requires a complete energy transfer. A bond." Her eyes met his, galaxies swirling in their depths. "It cannot be undone." Through the pain, Ren managed to nod. "Do it." Vela placed one hand over his heart and the other against his temple. She closed her eyes, and the glow beneath her skin intensified, flowing like liquid light down her arms and into Ren's body. The pain transformed into something else, a sensation of being unmade and remade simultaneously. Ren felt as though every atom in his body was being recalibrated, tuned to a new frequency. Memories that weren't his flashed through his mind, centuries of luminary existence, knowledge and experiences beyond human comprehension. When it ended, he gasped, drawing in a breath that felt like his first. The containment field had dissipated, but something remained, a warmth flowing beneath his skin, a subtle glow visible in the veins of his wrists. "What did you do?" he whispered. Vela helped him to his feet, her own light dimmer but steady. "I shared my essence with you. Our energies are synchronized now." A small smile touched her lips. "It is how my people bond for life." "We need to go," the captain shouted, already retreating up the ramp. Together, they stumbled onto the ship just as the first port security officers burst into the docking bay. The ramp closed behind them, and moments later, they felt the lurch of the ship breaking free from its moorings. In the small cabin assigned to them, Ren examined his hands in wonder. Faint lines of light pulsed beneath his skin, not as bright as Vela's, but unmistakably similar. "Will this fade?" he asked. Vela sat beside him, taking his hands in hers. Where they touched, their energies resonated, creating patterns of light that danced between them. "No," she said softly. "What I gave you is permanent. A part of me lives in you now, and a part of you in me. And the harvesters? They will still hunt us. But now they hunt two instead of one." She looked into his eyes. "I'm sorry for bringing this upon you." Ren shook his head. "Don't be. For the first time in years, I feel alive." He raised a hand to her cheek, watching as their energies intertwined where they touched. "Where will we go? There are others like me, refugees, hidden throughout the galaxy. Places the guild cannot reach." She leaned into his touch. "But first, we must learn what you have become. No human has ever carried luminary energy before." Through the small viewport of their cabin, Nova City receded into the distance as the ship accelerated toward the upper atmosphere. Ren felt no regret watching it disappear, only anticipation for what lay ahead. "Whatever I am now," he said, drawing Vela closer, "we'll figure it out together." As their lips met, the energy they shared surged between them, two beings from worlds apart, now bound by something more powerful than either had imagined possible. In the darkness of space, they glowed like embers, small but defiant flames against the endless night. And for the first time since they'd met in that maintenance tunnel, neither of them was running anymore.